Okay, so we're going to do the hole wizard here. I'm going to show you to put in some holes. We're going to put in some symmetrical holes on this face over here. And we're going to make it so that we can eventually put in some fasteners between this, which is our pressed wedge block, and whatever structure is going to be below that. So let's do this. First thing we want to do is we want to minimize this. We want to make that plate a little bit less thick than it is right now. Right now it's about 1.5 centimeters. We're going to make that about 1 centimeter, maybe about a half an inch or less. So let's take our initial sketch over here for our base. Right click on that sketch, go to edit sketch. Let's take this value. Instead of 14, let's go ahead and make that 8. We're going to make that 8 millimeters. And we're going to go ahead and rebuild that. So there we have it, and now we're going to go ahead and put the hole wizard holes on this face. Okay, now that we have our part modified, let's go ahead and begin the hole wizard feature. And we start with the feature. Typically what we've been doing up to SolidWorks so far is we do a sketch first, we define that sketch geometry, then we make a feature out of that. We create a feature out of that sketch. This one's going to be a little bit different. What we're going to be doing before we actually do the sketch is we're going to be defining what that hole is going to be. So it's kind of like going through a toolbox and trying to find fasteners. We're going to define the hole based on various parameters. And then we're going to go do a sketch. We're going to sketch some elements out here on this face, and then we're going to go ahead and choose the hole for that. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and click on this face. There's a couple ways we can do it. We can right click on that face, and actually in the shortcut menu over here, there's an option for normal to, or the old-fashioned way. If you click on that face and go to view orientation, we have the normal to here also. So whatever one is a little bit easier for you. And since that's not cooperating, I'm just going to right click and click normal to. What you want to do is be able to see this from the top to down and be able to select that geometry. And that's the reason why we do the normal to, is you have the capacity now when you're doing a straight down view, a straight over view like this, that you can actually select some of this geometry, whereas if it were tilted sideways and perhaps something would approach an isometric view, it's hard to select those elements. Alright, the hole wizard. Let's just jump right into it. So it's going to be up here in your feature tab on your command manager. Just go ahead and scroll over a little bit. Mine's 5, 6 objects over 7. If you go ahead and click on that, there's also a pull down arrow over here too. We can do a thread with that too as an option, but we're going to go ahead and click a hole wizard. And the first thing it does over here in the Properties Manager is just giving us the opportunity to define the type. So this is going to be typical of Properties Managers or Property Managers like this, is we're going to start from the top and work our way down. First item up here is called Favorites. We don't really have any favorites defined yet, but if you really start getting into this and have a favorite hole that you like to maybe use over and over and over again, you could actually go up here, select your favorite, and then go right to Positions, and then move on beyond that. So, and positions too, we might as well talk about that while we're here. We're going to select the type first, and then when we go to positions, that's when we actually go into the sketch. So then we're going to sketch out a bunch of geometry in here, and then we're going to put in points. Those points are going to define ultimately where that hole is going to go. And we're going to be doing a countersink hole in here, so it'll actually take that profile of that hole at that point and do a revolve cut at that point. That's the way that works. So, define the type first, sketch second, and then SolidWorks will automatically do the feature third. So we talked about the favorites folder. We're going to go to hole type. If you rest your cursor over each one of these, you can see the kind of hole that you could choose. First one is going to be a counter bore. Next one is going to be the countersink, kind of like the bolt we're going to be putting in here. Third one is just going to be regular hole, but the regular hole also has a profile at the very bottom and try to emulate what a drill bit might look like if we were to take that hole and maybe not put that all the way through the model. So it's a little bit different from a cut extrude using just a circle. This one actually has a profile of what the drill bit's going to look like. And then you have some threaded options in here. You have one here called a straight tap. Then you have a tapered tap, perhaps like a pipe thread. Then you have a hole that here that could be defined as a legacy hole with various dimensions. And we have slots down here. We have a counterbore slot, a countersink slot, very similar to the holes up here, except for a slot is kind of like an elongated hole. And then we have our hole slot, or just a regular slot up here for that. So our standard, it's defaulting here, at least for me, to ANSI inch. What we really want to do is ANSI metric. We're in a metric model here, so we're going to go ahead and choose that. And then we're going to go ahead and choose the type. So this is going to be a flathead screw, and that's okay. We have 3 different choices in here. We could do oval head screw or a second countersunk screw. We're going to stick with the flathead screw. We're going to have an ANSI B18.6.7 millimeters. That defines the profile of that screw, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later. Then the hole specifications, we're going to see if this works. We're going to do a 2 millimeter hole. So we're actually going to choose something a little bit bigger. We're going to use 4 millimeters for that. We have a couple different choices for fit. We could do a close fit, which means that bolt's going to go in there a little bit tight. You have normal fit, normal clearance, and you have a loose clearance in here, depending on your needs. We're going to go ahead and choose normal, probably the default setting for you. And if we continue down, we have a few more choices down here. Of course, we could do show custom sizing in here too. If we click on that, it's going to give us the opportunity to customize that hole. So this shows you the different parameters of that hole. 4.5 millimeters on the top, 9.4 millimeters across the very top of the countersink profile. Now you have a 90-degree profile in here too. So it's a little bit different with ANSI inch. The profiles are, this 90 degrees is not going to be 90 degrees. It's probably going to either be 100 degrees or 82 degrees. But again, it's all part of the options we're going to be selecting here when you go to your Properties Manager and you click on Type. So those are the custom size. And again, 4.5 millimeters is the hole size. And to show you the difference between normal, close, and loose. If you go to close, even though we chose a 4 millimeter hole, the clearance is 4.3 millimeters with a close fit. And with a loose fit, it's actually even more, it's 4.8 millimeters. And with the normal fit, it's just going to go up there by half a millimeter. So moving down a little bit more, the end condition, we could choose through wall, or we could do blind, or up to next if we wanted to define some other geometry in our model. So we're going to typically just do through wall for this exercise. And there's other options in here too, like for head clearance. Again, we can scroll down and click on that. It tells you what we could have in here for the head clearance, so that way when we put in that bolt in here, the head won't be right on that surface. If there's going to be a interference issue, you might want to put in a head clearance in that. We're not going to do that right now. And increase countersink too, we can do that too. If we scroll down, we kind of get a little picture of what that might entail. So unclick those. We've already made a selection here. Now we're going to go to positions. Okay, so now that we have Hole Wizard open, we've done the hole type. So the next tab over is position. And what we want to do is we want to put in some sketch geometry in here in order to position where those holes are going to go. And like I said before, those holes are going to be positioned right on top of points. So all we have to do is put in some sketch entities in here in order to fully define where those points are going to go. So right here, this is yellow, which means it's looking for some sort of input in our graphics area. And right now it's suggesting that select the face of the hole or slot position, or to create holes on multiple faces, click the 3D sketch. So the 3D sketch option, we could put holes in the bottom here, and we could put holes maybe in this face over here, and maybe one through here too. One option, or one nice benefit of being able to do that, is you have all these different holes in different faces, all within one feature. It makes it very feature efficient. Let's go up here and let's go ahead and get back to normal too. And then let's go ahead and choose this face. We're going to choose this face over here, and now we get to sketch out our hole. So right now, if we were to just drop a hole in here, you can see the preview of what we might get with that hole. If we drop it like right here, what you're going to see is a point. Over here, there's going to be a point. You can see the point that was laid in up there. There's a point over here, which has been it's just currently selected. And we can continue doing that. But what we might want to do is put in some extra geometry in here in order to define those points. So let's do this. Let's go to corner rectangle and sketch out a rectangle from roughly about that position. What we want to do with that rectangle is we want to turn it all to construction. So let's go ahead and click on this box down here and put a check in that box in Properties Manager. If we do that, now we have sketch geometry in here. We have center lines and construction lines that we could use to better position these holes. So let's put in some dimensions in here. Let's put a dimension between outline and maybe that edge. We'll define this a little bit better. Let's perhaps make that 7. We're going to do the same thing on this side, or you can put in some symmetric relationships in here in order to define that a little bit better. So if we go to center line and maybe pick the center point of that face and the center point of that face over here. Select the midpoint over here and do the same thing. We can select the midpoint of that line over here, and select this line over here. We can actually do coincident here, so that'll line that up. What that does is it gives us the capacity to be able to move that around. Now that we have that 7mm dimension in here, it's going to be 7mm off the top here too. So escape twice, we're going to get back to that dimension, and this is going to over define it. But if we do that and make that dimension in the default setting here, by make that dimension driven by other sketch geometry in here, we can see that that's going to be 7. So here we have the capacity to move that around. We could probably put in another center line down the middle here, or we could just define that with 2 more dimensions. So we're going to put in, don't want that dimension, but if we do escape twice, or get back to the dimension tool, smart dimension tool, we can add some more values in here. So we could put 10 in there. We could put a center line down the middle of this if we want to do that, or we could just put another dimension in here and make that 10 too. So once we do that, now we can take these points and put those on the corners over here. So this point, we can put that over here. We could add additional points up here. And what you do is you go up to the Sketch tab of the Command Manager, click on Point, and we're going to add 2 more points in here, that position and this position. Now if you look at the preview, what you're going to be getting, maybe these holes are a little bit close to that edge, so we can take that 7mm dimension, maybe make that 8 or 9, kind of scoot that in a little bit. If you like the way it looks in the preview, and not only does it give you the preview from the top, but if you rotate that so you can see it from the side, you can see where the cuts are going to be. And if we go over here to, if we do escape once, now we're going to be able to get back to the Hole Wizard Hole Properties Manager. And once we do that, if we go to the green check mark over here, we're going to go ahead and complete that. So if we rotate our model around, you can see the sketch geometry in the background. And remember, the Hole Wizard is only going to recognize points. So all the endpoints of those lines that we had in there, those are going to be ignored, as well as the center lines that were in there. And if we had model lines in there too, arcs and lines, it's going to ignore that too. All the Hole Wizard feature is looking for are points, or sketch points. Okay, so now that we made modifications to our model by putting in these Hole Wizard hole locations and very specific locations in here, let's take a look at what we did. So remember, they're all in one feature, and this is what your Hole Wizard feature looks like. It's got that magic wand with a, an image of what looks like a block with a green hole in it. That's your Hole Wizard hole icon. And if we open that up and take a look in here, we have 2 different sketches in here. We have our sketch 4, which is a sketch that we're playing with. And if we want to make some changes to that sketch, we can do that. So that's the very first sketch in here. And we can make modifications to that sketch too if we just rotate that a little bit. So that's our sketch 4, but there is another sketch in here too. If you take a look at our sketch 5, what that does is it shows you the different sketch elements associated with that hole. So essentially, we haven't really covered a revolve cut or a revolve boss base feature. But essentially the way that works is you have a center line in your feature, you have a sketch profile on one side, and it gets rotated about that center line in here. So it's the same thing with this Hole Wizard hole. What it does is it's got this cut. You can see it in a light blue line types here in the background. So you see this angular line over here, which defines the countersink. And you have this line over here, which defines half of what that hole. And when this gets wrapped around here, and it does that cut around here, it produces the hole that you see. So this is defined by our dimensions. Remember these dimensions, we saw that when we went to the type for that Hole Wizard. Have 9.4 millimeters across the top. For a 4 millimeter hole with a normal clearance is 4.5 millimeters here, because you have to take in consideration the threads that kind of stick out from that hole a little bit. Then you have your 90-degree angle in here, which defines where that countersink is going to be. So that's what that is. Those are 2 sketches. One's a placement sketch, one's a profile sketch of the revolve cut. But if you want to go back into your feature, you can right-click into that feature and just go to Add a Feature, and it takes you right back to where you were before. So you go back to Type, make changes to the type. If you want to make that a counter bore, if you want to make it a little bit bigger or smaller, you could do that. Again, go back to positions, maybe add some additional geometry in here. You notice that the cursor now still looks like a pencil, and we still have the capacity to drop more points in here. And we can do that. Drop a point in here either on the existing geometry or maybe off here to the side. If we put one off to the side, as sketch 4 that we just saw is going to be underdefined. And then go back to the green check mark, and now you made your modifications to the Hole Wizard. And our sketch 4 is now underdefined, so let's go ahead and go back into that. If we could just go right into that sketch, we don't necessarily need to go into the whole wizard feature. Then we could take that point and delete that. Rebuild our sketch, and everything's complete. So, real quick summary with the whole wizard feature. It's up here in your Command Manager under the Features tab. You go ahead and select that. Select your type of the hole that you want to use. Now you're going to go ahead and select the positions. And once you get the positions in place with the reference geometry, it's only looking for points. That's a test question. Then you can go to the green check mark, and you should be done.